Coach Pete Coulson hasn't been with us for a while. He joins us this morning, the day before Thanksgiving, on News Radio 1310, KLIX, and newsradio1310.com. Bill Colley with you until 10 a.m. I do want to mention coming up a little later in the program, we've got Sergeant Ken Menzel from the Twin Falls County Sheriff's Office, as well as the Gun Guys coming up at 9 o'clock this morning. All of that still ahead. And then we wrap up for a few days. No show, at least on my part, tomorrow or Friday. Coach, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, sir. It's always a pleasure to speak with you.
I want to start off, I don't mean to make this a sad note, but we were talking a couple of weeks ago about, I think this was off air, about all the things people should have to be thankful for, and we've gone through it. It's been a rough year for most people, I think for everybody. I don't think anyone can say it's been a good year for them, maybe a handful. But I was driving home Monday after work, and I have a neighbor, his name was Roger, and Roger, I just saw him out in a restaurant a few weeks ago and had a chat with him, and his health wasn't great, but he didn't look like he was in any dire trouble of passing away. He was a friendly neighbor. He was kind of a salt of the earth guy. His family joked that there was a day when he was 18, he drove from Park City, Utah to Wyoming and got 3 speeding tickets. So he was known, for a heavy foot, and he had my dad would have said he was full of vinegar, one of those type of guys. And, he was funny, would tell you what was on his mind, didn't sugarcoat anything, but was a really nice guy. I came pulling into the house on Monday after I got out of work and noticed that there was a van from the coroner's office at his place. And he had died apparently sometime either during the night or in the morning. And his family, I was talking to a couple of members of his family, and they were telling me that they'd already had elaborate plans. They were going to do a little traveling for Thanksgiving Day. That's not going to happen. Obviously, they're now planning for a funeral. And it's got to be gut-wrenching this time of year. And after what they've probably gone through with COVID and some of the other things we've dealt with, what do you say to someone in that situation?
Well, those are tough situations because, like we've said so many times, life is never fair. And the best way is just to listen rather than maybe always say something, but just to listen and let them speak their perspective and let them process through their own grieving process.
I was going to say this time of year, I had an uncle who married into my family, and I can remember at Christmas time, he would often sit alone and just stare forward. And I used to think he was the most unfriendly of people. And I asked my grandmother about it one time, and she looked at me and she said, his grandmother, who was perhaps the most important person in his life, died on Christmas Day several years ago. So we're dealing with a lot of mixed emotions when it comes to this time of year, because I have, for instance, all these memories of what it was like to be with relatives on Thanksgiving Day, large houses filled with lots of people, and the same at Christmas. And a lot of them are gone now. And I think for a lot of people, this is the most bittersweet time of year, the next 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, definitely. And I think one of the most important things we realize through this time of year is the importance of family and the way it's been our support system throughout our lives in so many different levels. And with this current pandemic, that has been altered. And that is such a travesty in so many different levels. And that's the thing that I always remember myself, is just go into my heart and dig deep in my heart and soul and see, what are the people that impacted my lives? What have they done for me? And what would they want me to do in this current situation? And I think the best thing I would say is just help them be people of love and grace through these circumstances. Don't add fuel to the fire. Add love and patience through the process of this new normal.
You're not immune to some of these things that happen to people. You had a death in the family this year, and that obviously is difficult to deal with for anyone. But you have to find a way to because we've got to grieve. Everyone's got to grieve, but you have to find a way at some point to rise above that.
Well, definitely. And I think being a person of faith and believing in Jesus Christ as my personal Savior, that gives me so much hope for the eternal. And so what we have on this earth is temporal, but we're looking to a greater heaven and earth that we'll live forever with. And that's that gives me hope and grace in so many different ways.
I was going to say, a lot of people out there have been hurt business wise. They may have been unemployed for a stretch because of COVID. They may not have gone to work because of COVID or back to work. And so they may have a fairly sparse feast tomorrow. Can they still find a way to give thanks? Is there something that they can give thanks for?
Every day you wake up and breathe, that's something to be thankful for. The fact that you have life and breath and the opportunity to impact a life, that gives us hope, from my perspective. Find ways to empower people to be the best they can be despite the circumstances.
Your own experience spending a few years in an orphanage, and you know, this is mixed because some people didn't have good experiences, albeit I was sharing this story a couple of weeks ago about an old Bing Crosby album that I used to have at home, where on the album there's a girl in an orphanage, and I believe she was in Kentucky, and she was appearing on the program. This was back in the 1950s. And she was talking about how all the children felt loved that were there, even though that they didn't have parents. They all felt that they were loved by the people who looked after them. And her, I'm going to try to dig this up. I know it's available somewhere online. I'm going to try to find this and play it before Christmas. That little girl would be today probably close to 70 or closer to 80 years old. But even in that situation where you have a family that's a blended family. You don't necessarily have a lot of blood relatives with you, but you found a way, right? You found a way to establish those ties.
Definitely. I mean, I think you find ways to connect to the good in each person, and I think that's the thing that was instilled in my life is who I am. Is that's how God designed me to be, and He wants me to be the best that I can be. Recognize that life is never going to be fair. There's going to be obstacles. There's going to be so many different situations in life that can really cause me to go sideways. But if I keep my hope on Him and find people in my life that help me through this process and through these channels of life, I will be okay. And I think that's what we have to reach into. We have to reach into friends that not only tell us what we need to hear, but what we need tells what we need to hear, not just what we want to hear. And I think that's such an important thing to remember.
I was just thinking of something you said about that, about how you were made, and when I was a boy, and I'd play ball with some of the other guys in the neighborhood. I was terribly nearsighted, so it's difficult when someone's pitching to you to always see what's coming, and so I'd strike out a lot. So baseball was not going to be my game. I could hit the ball a country mile, but I just couldn't connect all that often. And so I spent a lot of my childhood instead with my nose in books, because I could at least see the words. And at the time, you feel that there's something wrong with you because you're not as good as the other ball players and the like. But looking back on it, all that time I spent with my nose in books was tremendous preparation for what I do for a living today. Didn't know it in 1970, but I know it now.
And I think that's such an important thing to remember is that those things that you go through in your growing up years help you become the best that you can be. And I think that's one of the challenges in our society. Everybody wants to get a degree and define themselves by the degree. Let the process of getting that degree define the person you're becoming, because you never know where you end up. I mean, I look at my life experiences. I had no idea I would end up with what I'm doing today, but I've been blessed by having so many different life-changing opportunities that allow me to impact lives. And I almost remember the verse Mom and Dad said, "You're beautiful, for you're fearfully and wonderfully made by God." And having that in mind, I can do anything through Him because He gives me the strength to face those situations with those people I come in contact with.
Earlier this morning, I heard a promo for a TV program that's going to be upcoming, and they're interviewing these old veterans who are still with us, a handful of them from World War II. And one of the veterans was being interviewed about liberating a death camp. And he mentioned these people, he said, would come up to us and they would fall to their knees and grab us and thank us. And I think about these, you pointed out when you wake up every morning and you can still breathe. And Doug, by the way, in Teton Valley, drops a line and says he's in complete agreement with you on that. But this is the thing. We've all gone through some very difficult things in life, some people worse than others. But there are those moments where all of a sudden someone comes through a gate and you're rescued. Maybe to make that as a metaphor, but that's available, and there's a reason tomorrow when you're sitting down before dinner, you can give a thank you to God for that.
Well, definitely. I mean, you never know that angel that walks into your life that helps you through that journey in life that maybe back then you didn't realize, but looking back, you say, wow, if it wasn't for this person or that person, I would not be here today. And I'm so thankful for the risk my mother took to leave me at the hospital to give somebody opportunity to raise me. That was a big step in her life, but she knew that she didn't have the skills to help me, but she found people, or she knew there would be people that would help me through that. And through my 65 years of life, I've been blessed to have so many different people direct my paths and help me walk the straight and narrow. And when I don't, get me in line.
Well, you bring that up, and as you were saying that, I was thinking about some people I've known in the past, teachers and the like, and unfortunately, I never got a chance to thank them, a lot of them personally, after I grew up, and many of them aren't with us any longer. But along the way, I remember some of these people in school encouraging me in various ways, and at the time, you think they're just being nice, but that encouragement was really, it was worth, it was worth its value in gold.
Oh, definitely, because I think in life, we always kind of measure things by wins and losses. I measure things by wins and learning, because you learn when you win, you learn when you lose, because in life, every opportunity gives you something to grow by, and you have those people that instill those things through you and to you, despite whatever you're going through, because that's how God works. We need each other to help us in this process. And as kids are not involved in schools and things like that, that's something they're going to miss out on. And that's my fear, but we still can have those moments of empowering the people and empowering ourselves to be involved in the community and help those that are hurting.
We got about a minute before the break. I'm going to squeeze a caller in. I think our caller's gone. Coach is going to be with us until 8:30 this morning, so if you got a question or comment for him, you can save that. We'll take a short break at 8:20, and then we'll spend a few more minutes with him, too, as well. By the way, for people who'd like to get in touch with you, how do they go about doing that?
Coach Coulson at gmail.com.
And again, you're always available to try to find a way to squeeze a speaking engagement into your schedule.
Well, definitely. Anytime I can do it and empower people, I'm blessed.
And you don't mind traveling?
No, except when it's snowing like it is right now up here.
Yeah, the Boise weather sometimes is a little worse than here.
Yeah.
We've got more coming up with Coach Pete Coulson in just a moment. It's 8:20. We're at 26. Bill Colley on News Radio 1310, KLIX and newsradio1310.com, and you're listening to Magic Valley This Morning. We have a note for Coach Pete Coulson. This comes in from Brent Renke, and wishing us a happy Thanksgiving, and he asks you to keep up the great work.
Well, I'm just blessed to have him as a mentor in my life. He's a great individual. God bless him.
And you know what? He's one of the most intelligent people that I've ever met.
Oh, definitely. Well, the thing about it, I think he learned early in life the value of people and the value of individuals, that no matter what status you have in life, you have value and significance. And that's something that so radiates in his life. I'm so blessed by that.
We're coming up on 8:23. Coach Pete Coulson joining us this morning on Magic Valley This Morning with Bill Colley. And you're listening to News Radio 1310 KLIX. It's 24. We're going to grab a caller. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Coach Pete.
Yes, I'm enjoying the conversation. Just wanted to add this, that life is not designed to be fair. Life is designed to draw us to Jesus Christ. And I thank you for what you do on the air, and I hope you have a really great Thanksgiving. Thank you.
Hey, I want to thank you for the call. And that's true, Coach. I mean, we are challenged, especially Christians, to pick up that cross.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that's a daily thing we need to do. And I think we're being challenged even during this time with this election dilemma and things like that, that this gives us an opportunity to take a stance and impact lives, not on our agenda, but on his agenda.
By the way, he does not necessarily always share that agenda with me. So
No, but we walk by faith, not by sight.
right. And so that's the other part of this. When you sometimes are depressed, for instance, if you have that faith, you got to stand back and remember the promise is there. You just have to allow things to unfold.
Yes, and be teachable. You're not always right. Allow other people to mold your way of thinking, but become a critical thinker because there's so many things challenging our thinking on a daily basis.
You know, when you were working in the dairy farming business, and my best friend does that as well, and has been doing it most of his entire life. I mean, his family's been on the same farm since 1834. But I always remember doing that type of work and that type of hard work. But it gave you a chance while you were doing it. You could have your thoughts to yourself, and that's where you can really consider all of these big questions while you may be shoveling manure or you may be milking the cows. But you know what? At the same time, you can kind of look outside and take a look at that beautiful horizon and think about how this all works together.
Yes, I think you just learn to look and analyze life from so many different vantage points. And I think that was the richness of me growing on the dairy farm because I could milk cows, I could feed them, I could mow hay, I could do a lot of different things to be very versatile in my skill sets. Only allow those skill sets to develop me who I am today.
Yeah, the value of hard work is certainly picked up there too. Caller, you're up next. You're on the air with Coach Pete Coulson on KLIX.
Good morning, Bill. Good morning, Pete. I want to thank
Good morning,
you
sir.
guys for the topic this morning. Amazing what inspires us, what we're thankful for. And I have to think back about a teacher I had back in high school that was a shop teacher. And whenever he made mistakes, he was just brutal. He was so picky, and we didn't understand it. He would tell us when you did something really big blunder, he'd say, well, whenever you shovel and digging ditches, don't throw dirt into the wind. And, that stuck with me. And years later, I drove up on him, and he was putting a utility line in, and he was cleaning the bottom of the ditch out. And I pulled up in a little red sports car with a beautiful gal beside me, my girlfriend, who went on to be a neurosurgeon. So I ran with some pretty decent people, and I pulled up beside him, and I said, hey, be careful not to shovel into the wind. And he looked up at me, and he just smiled. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago, I was at an airport in Northern California, and I saw an article on this gentleman that was my teacher, and he had personally rebuilt an F-4 jet that he owned.
Wow.
As a home project. And I think back, well, that's why he was so picky, because it was important. It was very important. And I've taken that with me over the years, that advice from him, shoot for the moon. Second place isn't good enough. And the most important thing, don't shovel dirt into the wind.
Hey, Mike, thank you for the call. Pete, what do you think of that?
That's such wise words, because I think sometimes we utter words that only come back to bite us. And I think that's a very good analogy about, how we look at life. Don't let the dirt that you spill at other people, it's going to come back and hit you. And there's so many different analogies you can draw from that, but that's very well said.
Yeah, there were some of those people who, and even my dad was a little bit like that too. Sometimes you'd think, when is he going to stop? But, you develop a sense that you've got to make sure you do get it right. And
I remember a coach, or I read an article about a coach, and he just won the state championship. And he was asked the question, well, what do you think of your team now? And it goes, I'll have an answer for you in 20 years. And that's powerful, because I have a lot of kids I've coached, and I see their lives today, and they're still impacting lives because of what they learned through hard work and hard labor.
I had a boss that really was on me all the time for 6 years. But not in a, he could be very brutal and tough. But a few weeks ago, he sent me a note, and he wanted to thank me for being such a great friend. Which I haven't had a chance to see him personally, face to face, in 25 years. The memories are very long standing there. By the way, the best person I think I ever worked for.
Wow, there's so many people that have influenced my life, and I'm so thankful for that. And so I think through this holiday season, I think in this Thanksgiving season, be thankful for family, even if family can't be there. Go down memory lane and be just remembering the things they did to influence you to become the best that you can be.
Coach, I got to thank you. I wish you a great Thanksgiving.
God bless you, my friend, and we'll talk soon again.
All right, take care. Coach Pete Coulson joining us this morning on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Sergeant Ken Menzel on the way in just a couple of minutes. We're coming up on 8:30. It's 23. Temperature's going the wrong way. We'll talk a little bit about that, too, because weather has an impact on your driving. Bill Colley with you on Magic Valley this morning.